how to cut your hair at home. That is the topic of today's video. Just to let you all know, I'm not going to be doing one specific type of haircut tutorial, but what I am gonna go over are things that are just as important, like what kind of tools should you be using, techniques, tips and tricks, and all sorts of things that hopefully will help you achieve a somewhat decent haircut while you're at home. Also a couple things, not to do. And so this is gonna be a bit more of a breakdown of what consists of attempting to cut your hair at home. So let's get started. Now I'm gonna start with a haircut that is, I would say, somewhat common, but what's popular about this is it's short, right? It's short in through here and then works up in through length on the top here, whether it's a taper, but anything that involves using buzzers or trimmers, you need to be very, very careful. So what I'm going to do is I have like 4 or 5 mannequin heads here. What I'm going to do is just show you one of the tools that I use. Now this is the wall clipper. This is the 100th anniversary edition. A pretty heavy machine right here. Also the wall magic clips are really, really awesome. I believe that in the description is my Amazon affiliate page where it shows all the tools that I've purchased on Amazon myself directly and ones that I'm currently using. So you can go there and find it in the description below, and just basically, if there's things that interest you, you can buy it right from that my shopping page. You want to make sure you have good clippers. You can go to the store and buy a pair that's like $35 or $40, whatever it is. But if you are going to take cutting your hair at home that seriously, think of what a professional would do. He or she would not go buy very, very cheap and expensive clippers. You want to make sure you're getting good quality. So these are the clippers that I use, and also these are the guards that I use. And these are attachments that basically go on, they snap on to the clipper itself. They snap right on, all right? Also, this has the lever right in through here, which adjusts the length, and obviously the switch to turn it on, and you need to charge this. So it's a rechargeable battery inside here. The first thing you want to be careful of when attempting to cut your hair at home, whether it's doing a fade or cutting something relatively short, is I always say, go one step longer. So if you're used to using a number 1 guard and you're used to seeing your skin and this and that when you're cutting it, maybe go up to a number 2 or even a 3. Yes, it may not be as short, it may not be as tight or as faded or whatever it is, but the worst thing you want to do, and I've seen this with guys walking around, is think you can fade hair like your barber does or like your stylist does. And I've seen people take a 1 guard or no guard. Oh, I get a ball fade, I'm gonna do it myself. And they will start and shave all the hair off, and they don't even blend it in or know how to blend it in. So literally, it just looks like a bald bowl around the head, and you don't want that. So by starting a bit longer, you're helping yourself by, 1, not making an obvious mistake, and it also just blends a little bit easier, and it's not as noticeable. Right? Once you start going super, super short, you got to be very, very careful. Use a hand mirror. Look at your head in the mirror, using the other mirror so you can see the back, and just be very, very, very careful. Also, another thing is if you're used to getting your hair really short, I would say instead of maybe a professional uses like 3 or 4 guards right in this area, maybe use a number 1 a little bit higher up, and then maybe go to a 2 or something, as long as you have a short haircut or something that's very similar. So again, just be very, very cautious and be very, very careful when it comes to cutting your hair with clippers at home. So let's talk about some of the tools as well, aside from clippers. Hair cutting comb. I do sell these hair cutting combs on my website. These are the combs that I use. Yes, they're plastic. They're not some sort of crazy stainless steel, but I got these made to duplicate the ones that I used to use that were like $15, $16, even higher, a comb. I said, let me create a less expensive version of that, and that's where these were born. So the unique thing about this is that the tip right here, there's a little bit of a space which helps allow you to section the hair much easier. So when you're working, you may need to get the comb through and create like a line, right, to section off. That's where this little point here comes in very, very handy. I've gotten people saying, oh, it's chipped or it's cracked. No, it's purposely supposed to be like this so it can help you section the hair. I have these in red and white. So definitely check out a good hair cutting comb. Next, you're going to need shears. So you may be tempted to cut your hair with these suckers right here with the, your typical kind of scissors you have at home, laying around in the house or the drawer. I wouldn't suggest it if you're in a desperate situation and you have no other shears. Obviously, use them if you can, if they even can cut. But I would suggest something a bit more on the professional side or entry level. I do sell my own shears. These are on my website, and they're really, really sharp. They're really amazing, and these are all custom crafted based off of my specs of what I've always liked. Straight handle right here, as you can see. There's no offsets. It's a straight 7-inch shear, stainless steel, and they work really, really well. Next, you need a thinning shear, right? I would suggest, but a thinning shear is the one that has like those weird kind of spaced out teeth. And what that does is it really helps remove weight, and it's great for blending the hair. So if you do have a situation where you've got a little bit of a weight line and you want to soften it, that's when you can use the thinning shears right here, and you can really help remove a good amount of weight like that to make it softer. These come in very, very handy, and I would suggest getting them. Yes, you can find very, very inexpensive ones online, but I would suggest these two types of shears. Next is you're going to need some sort of brush. I sell this on my website. This is an anti-static vent brush. I've talked about this many, many times. I love this brush. It's got a rubber handle right here. So it's plastic here, but this is rubber. So you have a really solid, good, controllable grip on here where it's not plastic all the way down so your hand's sliding around. No, you get a really solid grip. Also, again, it's an anti-static vent brush. I've seen many, many times where you use a brush, even myself, you start to comb it and all of a sudden static and frizz all over the place. This prevents that, which is really essential when your hair is dry and you're trying to brush it and control it and stuff like that. It really helps fight against any sort of static. This is great for women who have longer hair to get out the knots. For men, even with hair length like this or a little bit longer, you need something that has wider teeth to help get through the knots. Whether you're blow drying it, whether you're combing it, it's going to be very, very helpful for you. These are called banana clips. These are great clips if you've got a lot of hair and you're trying to section the hair off and you're just like, I need to get all this hair out of the way. My hair's so long, it's so heavy. Well, you just clip it right out of the way, right? So banana clips come in really, really handy. They're so cheap. And then you've got these powerful suckers right here, or these are called alligator clips. And these things are super strong. So you can use the one side to section off like this, and then you can just simply clip it out like that and get the hair out of the way. A really, really good investment. Clips, combs, shears, and your tools. I mean, you have to take this very, very seriously. If you do plan to cut your hair yourself, whether it's due to quarantine or you feel safer doing it that way, but it's something that it's the first step in creating a good haircut at home. So let's talk about a little bit of the technique side of things. When you're holding the shears, right, I flip my shears like this. That's a pretty standard or alternative thing that hairstylists do. I mean, I see a lot of people not doing it. They just hold it like this, which is totally fine. The comb and the shears in one hand this way. And then I'm one of those guys who flips it around, and every section that I cut, I'll cut the hair, flip the scissor, cut the hair, and flip it back. So it's a little bit of a process, but after you get used to it, it's like second nature. So you want to make sure that your hands are in sync. The hand used to cut hair like this, meaning you're just moving your thumb to operate the shears, and also the comb. So a lot of times what you want to do is if you're cutting your hair and you're looking in the mirror or something, you want to make sure you have the comb really, really in sync with the shears. So if you hold the scissor flat to the comb flat to the head, it's going to be super short. The more you elevate the comb out from the head, then that's going to protect the length, and the longer it is. So the shortest, and then bringing it out to the longest. So if you're looking for, you know, something kind of right in the middle, where you have full control of your hands and of the length, right, and where you're putting the comb. You just have to be sure that you know exactly where you want it to go, because what you don't want to happen is like this, right, or an example where you cut it so short here that you can't even blend it in properly because the hair is too short and you're having a hard time doing scissor over comb. Remember, this is something you're doing at home and you're attempting, so it's going to be a bit more difficult at first, but this is the way that you blend hair, is that you lay the comb down and you just flatten it, and you're looking for all those longer hairs, right, that are longer than everything else. And that is how you end up blending, and that's how you end up creating a more seamless type of transition. And don't be afraid to comb it one way and then comb it another way, and then really just be very, very thorough with the technique. It's hard to see the hair in the back of the head, which I know it's almost impossible to do scissor over comb like this on your own head, but that's where I would suggest using the clippers and a mirror and adjusting the guards so that you can see what's going on. And also, like I mentioned, by leaving it a little bit longer, you're helping prevent more errors. So the next thing I want to talk about is, should you cut your hair when it's wet or when it's dry? So for these situations, if you're using clippers or going really, really short, or even if you're looking just to skim the ends, I would suggest doing the whole thing dry, because you could see exactly what is happening. You're seeing the results immediately, because you make one little snip and guess what? That's going to be it, and you're going to see how the hair falls or where it falls. So it's also a lot quicker too. So what I would suggest is, if you're looking to trim your hair, whether you're a guy or a girl and it's this length, you can just comb everything up in one shot and just snip off those dead ends. So you're using the comb and you're combing the hair straight up like this, and all you're doing is just lightly, lightly skimming the ends. Take your time with it, don't rush, don't cut too much, but just remember, the higher you hold your fingers, then the less you're going to be cutting. Don't want to cut your fingers, obviously you want to be very, very careful, but what you want to do is you can use your fingers kind of as a guide. One thing to understand when it comes to hair cutting is you've got the top, the corners, and the sides. The top, the corners, and the sides. The top is basically right down the middle like this, and then what happens next is you have to round it out and blend it in. So you've got the corners now, and the corner is where the head shape rounds out here, and then you've got the side, which is the very, very bottom here. So everything has to be in sync together. Just keep in mind when you're cutting your hair, let's do the top. All right, now we're done with the top. Let's go into the corners. This is where we kind of round everything out and blend it in. And you do this throughout the entire head, right, for as much as you can see. And then after you're done with that, you work into the very, very bottom. And there will be times where you're going to see a lot of hair, and you may, oh my gosh, I can't cut that, I can't cut that. It's not, it looks, I'm going to mess it up. But the thing is, though, is if you're following all of this and everything is looking perfect, and you get to this one part, say right here, and you've got hair sticking out here, this is short, cut it. Because that is excess hair that does not need to be there, okay? A lot of times, the next thing is I see people combing the hair up, and they start doing this, they start point cutting. Point cutting is a great technique if you are looking to create texture in the hair, but keep in mind when you're point cutting, you're not necessarily cutting every single piece of hair, right? Because say you're cutting your hair because your ends are dead or they're fried and you're like, oh, I want to clean up my ends. By point cutting, you're not only creating different lengths, but you may be potentially missing those ends. That's why I say cut it straight across first, cut it blunt, then go back in and point cut. And when you point cut, you're closing the shear on the way out this way. Very, very important, because if you close a shear when you're going down, you're going to probably cut yourself, and you don't want to do that. When it comes to, bangs, right? Let's switch to a new mannequin. When it comes to, say you're a woman and you want to cut your fringe or your bangs, what you need to be careful is that you always remember that this will shrink up. So if you're cutting your hair and it's wet and you say, oh, I want my hair, my fringe to be to my eyebrows, and you lock the hair in, right? And you say, oh, I want the hair to be right here, and then you go ahead and you cut all this off, what's going to happen is it's going to shrink way up here, and you're not going to be happy. You're going to be very, very upset because hair will shrink up. That's why I suggest doing it dry. And the best thing you can do when you're cutting your own fringe, your own bangs, is to use your comb like that and the shear together. So the shear, you notice I put underneath the hair, so that's lifting the hair. I'm lifting the hair right now up, and then I'm letting it fall into the comb. So what this is doing, it's just allowing me to get a nice clean section. Then I go on top like this, and I'm patting the hair down, and then you can pull this down to the length that you want. So you've got a few different ways to do this. You can give yourself a little bit of room, and you can point cut, right? Point cutting simply, like I mentioned, is just going to soften up the length, and that may be a good option for you. Or you can hold it blunt like this, trim off those dead ends, then go back in and soften and point cut like this. I suggest doing that because once you cut the length too short, then you're really in for it. Another tip you can do if you're looking to layer that area, it's a bit too heavy, just comb the hair straight out like this. This is the length on the bottom. You don't want to cut this, but what you do want to trim up is what's falling on top of that. That is the weight. That's what's making your hair very, very heavy. So all you're doing is you're elevating it up like this, and then you are cutting it and trimming it, okay? And what that's going to really do is soften this whole area up in through here, which a lot of times people find very, very heavy. You could also lift this straight up from the head, kind of like I mentioned before. We're working in the center and the corners. So you comb this straight up, and you're going to see a lot of hair. And guess what? That's all weight that needs to come off. And that's how you properly layer the hair so that you can have nice layers, you can have your fringe or your bangs trimmed up, and you'll be in good shape. Notice not once have I taken water right to the head. I haven't sprayed it. I'm doing this all dry, and it's really important to understand this. Okay, next is let's do a haircut, say like this. Say you've got like a feathered or a center haircut or a curtains haircut or something that has a natural kind of flow to it. The best thing you can really do is comb this straight up like this and just skim the ends, right? Trim the ends to where you're getting all those dead ends off. Do the same thing where you're going in the center, the corners, and the sides. Just you want to make sure you're not cutting something off that you shouldn't be cutting, right? Because you can really screw a haircut like this up. You may not necessarily want to cut the bottom length, all right, like the length all the way down through here, because it may be difficult to do that. If you are going to do that, that's when I suggest maybe doing it wet. You can do it dry. When you're taking off large amounts of hair, sometimes doing it wet is a lot easier simply because you can get the hair more under control. If you're trying to do it when it's dry, it's okay, but you have to be very, very precise, and especially when it comes to the length, just don't take too much off. That's all I can say. And when you get to the back, you can also hold and comb the hair straight up like this. I know it's very difficult to see the back of the head, but if you take the hair by feel and you lift and you comb straight up, what's going to happen is all that other hair is going to fall out of the section, and you're naturally going to create a blended layer if you bring everything up this way. Again, this is attempting to cut hair on your own head at home And you know, there is some risk, but if you're that much of a situation where you don't trust anyone else, you're not gonna go out and you need some serious hair help, then this is the best way to do it. And I hope that these tips were very, very helpful to you. Let me know in the comments below if you have any questions, if you found these helpful. I'd love to know. So thank you all so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see you next time for more videos with the Salon Guy.